Alright, here's my 2005 Kawasaki Brute Force 750, and I'm going to be showing you guys how to disassemble to get to the carburetor, remove the carburetor, and take it apart to clean it. And I'm also going to be installing a jet kit. I got one online from Amazon from Six Sigma. I looked at both the Dynajet and that, and for whatever reason I felt more comfortable with Six Sigma. Just seemed like a good company, good warranty and things like that. And so anyhow, that's what this video is going to be, and hope you guys enjoy it. First things first, remove the seat and remove the airbox cover. Next, using a 12mm socket, remove the 4 bolts holding on your front rack. Remove the 18 Phillips head bolts holding on your front, left, and right storage plastics, and also the plastic nut that is holding on the ignition switch. Next, remove the 3 Phillips head bolts from the collar. You do not need to completely remove the collar, as it has your AC port connected. You can simply pull it back, turn it to the side, and leave it. After that, there are 9 Phillips bolts on the far side here, and 8 on this side that you'll still need to remove to get your side plastics off. And additionally, your gear shifter, you just need to loosen this lower nut and you can twist this off. That will allow the plastic to slide up and over your gear shift. Alright, with your side plastic off, the next step is to remove your airbox. First, remove these 2 clamps here and here, the top 2. Loosen those up. After that, you got this bolt and that bolt, and you also have this screw to remove. You will need to take pliers to release this clamp before you are able to fully lift up the airbox. There's another smaller one back here that you can reach once you start to pull it up. The hose on that one just slides freely, so the minute you start pulling up the airbox, it will come out. Once you got the airbox loose, you can see the top of the carburetor. The only other thing you'll need to do to get it completely off is remove this screw right here, Phillips head screw, that holds this little deal for your breather tubes on your carb. This was the smaller tube that I was talking about. It slides up and down, so it's easy to pop off when you pull the box up a little bit. You can just leave the clamps slid down a little ways. Alright, I've removed my 2 air lines and my fuel inlet. Next, remove the 2 screws holding on the front cover. Now we can remove our throttle linkage. Loosen up this nut on the top side, and that will give enough slack to pull the linkage out from where it connects into the body of the carburetor. Then all you have to do is give yourself a little slack on the cable, and you can see right here where the end of your cable connects in to the linkage on the carburetor. You can move that back and pull that out. Once you've removed the throttle cable from its saddle and you've loosened up your 2 clamps on your manifolds to the motor, your carburetor is basically loose and ready to come off. It's still connected to the where the choke cables come into the carb, and also there's a couple of heaters. You can kind of see one right here. There's a spade fitting on one side, and the other one's right here. Those have to be taken apart as well, and once you do those 2 things, it will be completely removed. Another thing to keep in mind before you get too much further, you're going to want to put a paper towel or something of that nature down into each one of the manifold spots to make sure that nothing falls down into your motor. Slightly rotate the carburetor so you can see these brass brackets. There's two of them. That's where your choke cables come into your carb. Just loosen up the one bolt that each of them has, and this bracket slides off, and then you can pull the choke cable straight out. That's all that's holding it in. Two of those. Okay, now that the carburetor has been removed, you can take a 3mm Allen wrench to both of these heads, loosen those up, make sure that your drain tube is going down inside a bottle, something to catch the gas, but that's how you drain the bowls on your carburetor before disassembly. Okay, here's what the bike looks like with the carburetor removed. You can see I got the paper towels in the intakes. But what I wanted to show is that these are the rubber manifolds that go right here on the top of your motor. You want to inspect them for cracks to see how bad this is. I'd almost be willing to bet yours is the same way. They just get old, they get really hot, they get cold, and the last thing you want is for there to be a crack clear through it that would let air in. Not good. So I'd recommend go online to a site like MR Cycles, something like that, and get you some brand new ones. They're only like $6 or $7 a piece, and if you're this far into tearing your bike apart, definitely want to get these. Okay, back to the carburetor. Next step is to remove this cover and the fuel inlet. The bracket that holds the inlet tubes is just 2 screws, and then this slides right out. On the bracket, use 11mm wrench, end wrench, to take this nut off, and then on this side, pull this cotter pin, and there's a couple little tiny washers. Make sure not to lose those. This slides off, and then after that, all you got left is these 4 Phillips head bolts. So once you get your carbs apart, then you can start to take them apart. And I would recommend doing one at a time. And just another thing to keep in mind is that it is important to remember which one is towards the front of the bike, which one's towards the back of the bike. Start by just taking apart the bowl here on the bottom, those 4 brass screws around the outside. Right here is your fuel to air ratio screw. Most kits you buy will tell you, depending on the altitude that you're at, how many turns out. I think that this particular one wants you to seat it, and be careful when you seat it, and that means turn it all the way into the right. Don't over tighten it. But once you do that, then you back it out 2 full turns for my particular application. But that will depend on your altitude. Just make sure you keep in mind which one's the front and which one's the back. It was together just like this, and because the jets that you put in, specifically the main jet, is a little different from front to back. So here's the float chamber, loose. This is your float right here. You want to be real careful with it. It's very fragile, and they do have the bracket in there that you can see with that really thin little wire there where it holds it on. It's bent a certain way to allow a certain amount of fuel in. Usually you don't want to mess with that. But this screw right here, you loosen it up and it'll allow this to slide out. Just be real careful, but you can get that float out. And you want to do that so that you can get inside here. So what we're looking at here are the jets. So this is your main jet. And you can hold on to, let me see, the light's kind of messy here. You can hold on to this guy here with your 8mm wrench, and then take a flathead screwdriver and screw this out. Here's your main jets, and this kit comes with 4. You read in on it, and the smaller of the 2 goes in the front carburetor, and it's a slightly larger main jet goes in the back. This is the stock front, and they wanted me to put the 160 in on the front, and then the 165 in the rear. They also give you 2 steps up if you want to go even richer, or if you want to go leaner than these two, you can take the stock rear jet, stick it on the front, and put a 160 in the rear. So that's another option. And then here's the difference in the, you can see they're shaped different. The one on the right is the new idle jet. The one on the left is the old idle jet. And it's just got, it's got a bigger opening. I don't know how well this will show up, but I think it's really going to help it. These things tend to be cold-blooded, so I think it's really going to help it idle and just all around. And then again, just to point it out, this is your fuel to air ratio screw that they tell you to turn it in, twist it into the right, lightly seat it, and then back it out 2 full turns, and you should be good. Alright, here's the other side of the carb, the diaphragm. When you take the 4 Phillips screws out, just keep in mind there is a spring underneath there. Doesn't have a lot of force behind it, but it's always good to keep a hand on it. Take the spring out, and keep in mind the orientation of your diaphragm. It should only go in one way. You can see the little tab there, kind of lets you know. When you pull that out, you got your needle that touches in on the main jet there. But pull this out and take your needle. And so one of the things in the kit are these shims. And you're going to take 2 of those silver shims and put them down over the needle. Put it back inside here. And then you put the little plastic deal there they got back inside. Kind of keeps things straight. And what that does, say your needle here is sitting like so, basically those shims help to push the needle up just a little bit higher so that you're getting more gas. It's not blocking that off quite as much. The other thing that's cool about this kit, there's a couple things that they say you can do. I'm only going to do one, and that is to drill another auxiliary hole right, let's see, right about here. And I've already done it on one of the carbs. You can see in the picture here where that arrow's pointing. Comes with a bit. They give you a bit in the kit. I believe it's a 5/32. But anyhow, that just allows for a quicker opening. When you push on the throttle, this allows the diaphragm to open up quicker. And the other thing that they say you can do is clip this very lowest section of your spring off. Probably right, just barely where they start to separate there, about 1/8 of an inch from the overall length. And that also helps the diaphragm open up faster because it's not getting quite as much resistance from the spring. I'm not going to clip my spring. I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference for the type of riding I want to do. But I did drill the hole on the other one. I'm going to drill it on this one too. There you can see, just did my auxiliary hole. Looks pretty close to their example there. You're drilling through metal, so you're going to kick up little tiny shavings. You just want to make sure that you get those nice and clean. You don't want them left in there. But you can see down through, came out right between that raised area and the sidewalls. And that's about what you want. And it just gives one more little air port so that when this opens up, it'll do it quicker. And that'll help your low end from being at a standstill. When you really mash on the throttle, it'll help open that up and get more air and fuel flying through there.